Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Military Mondays. If you and I don't know each other, I'd love to connect with you on social media and get to know you. I do these Military Mondays every single Monday morning at 8 a.m. Mountain Time, and I am a 27-year Air Force veteran, and I just love highlighting veteran business owners or educating you on the military, whether you've served or maybe you're a civilian and you wonder what all those acronyms are and just kind of wonder what military life is like. This is a great place for you to tune in every Monday morning. And this morning, I have two, we're going to call them badass rock stars that I have on this morning. I first met Christine through a networking, through a friend of ours that connected us. And then, of course, she introduced me to Cristie. And they are with the DFW, so Dallas Fort Worth Veterans Chamber of Commerce. And Cristie served, and we like to call Christine a passionate patriot. That's what it is, passionate patriot. Because her son serves and she's got a whole family that is served. So welcome and thank you for joining me this morning on my Military Mondays, Cristie and Christine.
Well, you're welcome. It's great to be here.
Awesome. So Cristie, we're going to start with you because you are the veteran. Give us a little bit of background about you and what you did in the service.
Well, what did I do? I went into the Navy right out of high school, and I decided to become a medic in the Navy. So I was a corpsman stationed at Pax River, Maryland. And then soon after that, I was asked if I wanted to go to training in Camp Pendleton, California. And I said, yeah, sure, why not, right? And that led me to being with the Marines. I became a field Marine Force corpsman, which means that you go to school, you learn how to be a medic, patch up Marines, and then you get stationed with the Marines. So for the remainder of my enlistment, that's what I did. I was an FMF Corpsman.
Nice.
And I always say jokingly that the Marines taught me how to be a man.
So yeah. Medic, and then when you got out, what did you do when you got out of the service?
Well, I was deployed to the Persian Gulf War for 6 very long months, and then we came back and I got out. When I got out, I became a stay-at-home mom for 19 and a half years. And in those years, I raised my 2 older daughters. And then I got my bachelor's degree in graphic design. I got my master's degree in fine art. And I've been happily divorced for 12 years. And that transition led me to being involved in the veteran community.
Awesome. And I love, because that's exactly what I did. I served for 5 years and got out to be a wife and a mom, and then got back into the reserves. And that's a whole nother show about my background, but ended up serving 27 years. But I got out to be a wife and a mom too. So let's talk to some of those women that might be serving right now. That are transitioning out maybe to be a wife and a mom. And you've learned now there's lots of things that stay-at-home moms can do, especially being a single mom. What kind of words of advice would you give them? And what are some things that maybe you learned, skills you learned in the service that make you successful today?
Well, I learned perseverance, commitment, passion, dedication, right? With the Marines, and then pushing through the hard times was one of the biggest lessons that I learned, because when you're stationed with the Marines, it's a hard life. It is a hard life. I am not very tall. I'm not very big. I'm only 5'3". And back then I was only 110 pounds. So I was even slightly weighed less than what I weigh now, which is totally fine. So it's a physically demanding, hard life. What I would say is that when I first went in, I was thinking I was going to stay in my 20 years. I was going to retire. I had like this whole entire plan, right? And then things change. What I would say is that if you have that in mind, then you make it work. Don't get out, because it's one of the biggest regrets that I've ever had. Like to this date, I only have 2 regrets, and that's one of them, right? Having gotten out, not having done what I really wanted to do, which was stay the 20 years. And it comes back to haunt me a little bit, because people always ask me, oh, did you retire? And I have to say, no, I didn't, right? But I'm making it up on the other side by serving veterans in the community. You know, I'm still a veteran. So I did serve my time. I did my 1 tour of duty. I was deployed. And I want to say that I did impacted many people. But if you go into the military thinking that you're going to retire, then work it out, because you can't. There's a lot of successful couples that do 20 years and they work through their marriage, through having kids, right? And they retire. But if that's not for you, then don't feel bad about it and go on and raise a happy family, because it is an important part. Women make the world go round, and women raise amazing people. So if your desire is to be a stay-at-home mom, then do it with full passion and love and commitment, you know?
It's funny that you say you went in to make it a career and you didn't. You got out to be a wife and a mom. I didn't go into the service expecting to make it a career, and it ended up making it a career, partly because of the divorce I went through. So yeah, it's kind of interesting that our stories parallel but are different. So thank you so much for your service, not just while you were in, but you are serving veterans today. And that's, even as a wife and a mom, that's a huge role. And so I don't want to skip over that, because there are a lot of women that might be watching today that they are home and they are the spouse. And I'm telling you that in order for somebody to be super successful in the service and make a career of it, they need the support at home to raise those kids and run the household. And that's a huge job, especially when you're a military spouse.
Right. And my father was a career Navy, so he retired, and that was part of the reason why I got out, was because we had a discussion and he had more time in the military than I did, so it was easier for me to get out and be that supporting role for him. So he did retire out of the military. He spent 25 years in the military, so I was not only a veteran but also a military wife.
Yep.
You know, and then but I always felt like there was something missing in my life. I always felt like I didn't fit in, like I had a hole in my heart. Being the first war after the Vietnam War, a lot of the services that are available today were not available when I got out, right? I don't remember being asked if I had anxiety, if I had nightmares, if I had flashbacks. And it wasn't, I remember the first time I was triggered. I was walking the dog, and I was going down like this little hill in Washington state. That's where my kid's father was stationed. So we were up there and I was walking the dog, and the sirens went off for the city, like every month they go off, right? I didn't know that. And I looked around and I'm looking around and I am like almost in tears, because we had just moved there. So 1, I didn't know the city. 2, I didn't know it was like the city sirens being tested.
Panic.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, we're getting, bombed. And I'm looking around and everybody's like nonchalant, just walking, driving like nothing happened, and I'm in this fear flight mode. And kind of pick up the dog and I start wanting to run, but at the same time, I'm seeing everybody's not running. So I'm like walking really fast. And that was my first trigger. From there on out, I really started, and I had been fine up until that point. And from there on out, I had nightmares, I had flashbacks, I had anxiety, but I didn't know what it was. Like, I really didn't know what it was. And then when I went to the doctor and I was telling him about it, he was like, oh, well, you just got out of the military, you just got married, oh, you just had a kid, you know, oh, you're a stay-at-home mom, oh, you're really smart, you think too much, you know. And so, but I was going to a civilian doctor, right? So what do they know? And never did I say, I'm a Persian Gulf War vet, I came back from a war. Like that wasn't even part of the vocabulary, right? And I began to not talk about it because there was nobody that would understand, right? And when I would mention it to my kid's father, he would just say, well, we didn't have it as bad as anybody else. You know, we are not hurt physically. We have our whole body, you know, we're healthy. You're okay. You know, you just need to get over it. Stop thinking about it. You know, don't talk about it.
Oh, no.
So I'm sure he was having his own issues too, right? He was
a I'm sure
bit as well. And, you know, you have different ways of dealing with it. And so I spent 19 and a half years not talking about it, not dealing with it. Literally, I would go in my closet. I had a lot of anger issues. So my two older kids received the brunt of my anger issues a lot, you know, and I kept asking, like, I went to church. I asked the pastor, you know, what's wrong with me? I don't want to be this angry, frustrated, you know, person. And they would pray about it. I mean, I studied the Bible. I did all these things. And it wasn't until I started forcing myself. So whenever I would start to let the anger come out, I would give myself time out. And I would tell my kids, mommy needs time out because I don't want to hurt you. Okay? And so that's how I spent 19 and a half years of my life. And then when I got divorced, that's when my healing journey and my veteran adventure began.
Cool.
Because it wasn't until I was at my lowest low and I was watching, I always get teary-eyed. I was watching a news report about the veterans that choose to end their lives. And I was sitting on my couch and I had been crying because I'm having these anxiety issues. I'm having these nightmares. And I hadn't told anybody, right? Like, my kids don't know. They know something's wrong, but I'm not saying anything. And I'm watching TV and I'm praying and I'm like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I make it through the day? Why can't I be normal, right? And I'm watching the news and that segment comes out and they're talking about veterans choosing to end their lives. And I stood up and I was like, what? Why are they choosing to end their lives, right? And it was like a 5-minute segment or maybe 2 minutes. It was not long. So then I was like, what are they not getting? What do you mean they're choosing to end their life? They go and survive a war and then they come home and they die. And so that segment made me jump into the veteran community. And I started looking for organizations. How do we prevent suicide? What do we do? What's the problem? Why are they not getting the resources? So I was like the most outspoken person with any organization because I was like, no, we can't let this happen. You know, these are young people. They're like in their 20s. They have their whole life ahead of them. And that really led me to be an advocate within the veteran community. And then people were like, Cristie, you need help. I was like, no, I don't need help. I'm here for you. And they were like, Cristie, we need to get you to the VA. And I was like, no, 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 I'm not here to take resources. This is for you. I'm here for you, you know? And it took me 3 years of them telling me, Cristie, you need to go see somebody. You know, we have resources. These resources apply to you too. And I remember sitting in, where was I? It was a veteran meeting or something or other. And we had a Vietnam vet come in and be a speaker. And he was talking, he was a medic, and he was talking about his experience in Vietnam, right? And it paralleled to an experience that I had had before getting deployed. Before getting deployed, there was a helo crash. And we responded to that helo crash, right? And nobody survived. So picking up body parts and bagging and tagging, that kind of stuff, right? And so he was talking about it. And I was like, oh my God, I'm identifying with this Vietnam veteran, right? And then he starts talking about the anxiety and the flashbacks and the nightmares and the not being to make it through the day. And I'm like, that's me, you know? And he goes, and I wake up at 12 midnight every single day because that's when his experience happened, right? And mine was like around 2 a.m. And I was like, I wake up at 2 a.m., you know? And so then he starts talking about how he went on a journey of healing. And that was my turning point for me to get help, right? So then I was like, how do you go to the VA? I couldn't even take myself. Like, I took plenty of people there, but I couldn't take myself, right? I needed somebody else to go with me and start that process of getting into the mental health and doing therapy, you know. And I did get on some medication for anxiety and a non-addictive sleeping pill that I take to help me sleep. Learning coping skills, learning how to lower my stress, you know, keep everything very calm, figuring out what triggers me, meditating, music. So now I do my life totally different. And I always tell people, you're never, ever going to be cured, like ever. You know, you just learn how to move through it faster, right? And that's how that my life has been for the past 7 years. I've been divorced for 12, but the first few years, 4 years, I was really struggling, seriously struggling. Lots of flashbacks, lots of anxiety. I kind of don't recognize that person anymore, and it makes me a little bit sad. But I've come a long way from that. So my last 7 years, well, really my last 2 years, so this and last year and this year have been the best, because I'm moving in a different direction, right? I have a lot more coping skills. I have a lot more support. I have a lot more people on my corner that put up with me when I have issues.
And that's what it's about. And that's what you're doing down there in Dallas, Fort Worth, and providing that network. So you've learned, and I think the thing that I want all our viewers to take away from this is, as military veterans, whether you served 4 years or you served a whole career, the military teaches you, yes, you depend on other people in the military and your flight, your squadron, you know, whatever it is, the type of unit you have, but we don't rely on other people like outside, like civilians and that. We tend to do it all ourselves. And what I would say is, and I think you've learned this, Cristie, is you need to be able to reach out and get help from others and lean on others. And there are others out there. There are tons of organizations for veterans to help them through, because we don't want to see another person take their own life, because it unfortunately, it is very prevalent because of the PTSD and all of the trauma that military members go through when they serve, especially in wartime or overseas. So today, DFW, and that's how I met you, is through Christine and the DFW Veterans Group. So before we get to that, Christine, how did you and Cristie meet?
Oh goodness, we've known each other through years, through networking in the DFW area, and to have the opportunity to work with her, I jumped on it. She said, "Hey, guess what I'm going to do?" I said, "I'm in."
That's me. She goes, "Do I get paid?" And I was like, "Yeah, no."
No.
That's okay. I'm still in.
You get paid in laughter, friendship, and lots of love.
Exactly. And that's the thing, you know, when she's getting involved with military things, I'm like, I'm all in. It's with my son in the service. He's in the Air Force. And so he's currently deployed overseas. I was a military spouse myself. So I have a love of, you know, patriotism and love of the service. So anything I can do to help, I'm there. So I'm like, "Hey, Cristie," I'm next to you the whole way. You can't get rid of me.
Awesome. And so, Cristie, I've heard from Christine that not only are you the president of the DFW Veterans Chamber of Commerce, but I hear that you guys are kind of setting the model for Veteran Chamber of Commerces across the U.S. So tell us a little bit about what you do down there so that people in the DFW area can connect with you. And if they're not in that area, how do they connect into the Veteran Chamber of Commerce's?
Well, our headquarters, we are a national organization, the United States Veterans Chamber of Commerce. It is fully vetted through the DoD. And you can find more information at usvcc.org. I started our chamber with the desire to help last year due to the COVID pandemic. I'm a graphic designer, website developer. So I was looking for a way to help businesses stay in business, right? And my nose is running because I was trying not to cry. So in that endeavor, trying to figure out how to help businesses stay in business is what led me to open our own chamber here in the Dallas-Fort Worth. And then because of the vision, the passion that the leadership has had following me, right? I am now the National Chamber Development Director for headquarters, because we've been so successful and we've done it so well here in the DFW that they put me now in charge to help other chambers open in their area. The organization is a 4-year-old organization, but they've been predominantly in the East Coast, and now they want to branch out to the rest of the country. And so that's my job, is to help veterans open their veteran chamber in their area. And that's what I'm doing now, which is totally up my alley. I love it. It helped me pivot from where I was a year ago to something new, more exciting, and I think to me more impactful within the veteran community. One of the things that I always keep in mind is that yes, we're helping them on their business, but we're also hopefully having influence on their overall life, right? A veteran has to always, especially one that has gone to war and then come back, you have to be conscious of all areas of your life in order for you to function properly. So we can't just be so focused on business that we forget your mental well-being or your physical well-being, because if one thing slightly gets out of whack, you're totally out of balance, you know, especially if you have PTSD and anxiety and flashbacks and, you know, the issues that plague war veterans. And so that's been my focus, that we help everybody in all areas of their life through the chamber.
Awesome. And we could talk for hours. And we might need to have you on a couple of times, but to kind of wrap it up today, what would you say? You talked about your skills, but in general, as a veteran community, what type of skills do veterans bring to the table to own their own business? So many veterans just pop right back into government serving, like they'll go into contract work, or they'll go into the civilian DOD, you know, things like that. And I just think that we have a rare set of skills that makes us highly suited to own our own business. So from your perspective, what are those skills, soft or hard skills, that we learn in the service, so that if somebody is considering getting out in the next 3 to 5 years, that they keep all of their options open?
What I've seen is that when the military transitions, the first thing that they do is really try to find a job, right? And then they got to find out that they're not going to fit into the job unless they're pretty much in charge. And that's anybody from any rank. You're going to want to be in charge because you've learned how to self monitor, right? So you're given a task and you're very good at completing that task, right? So in the civilian world, it's not like that. You are too self-accomplished, and you will do a job in less time than it takes a civilian to do a job. And then the rest of the time, you're kind of just wasting your time, right? In the job. And then one of the skills that a veteran brings to starting their own business is that passion, the dedication, the self-monitoring, right? Task-oriented. So you're very good at taking care of business without anybody hovering over you or questioning you. Is it done right? Because you're going to do it right to begin with, right? In the military, everything is about doing things right, or there's a life that could be at stake, right? Mm-hmm. A tiny thing could kill somebody. So we're very self-conscious about doing everything right the first time. There's no do-overs, or very, very little, right? Because lives depend on us. And so we bring those skills to the civilian world, and starting your own business in whatever area interests you is like the best thing that you can possibly do. Your peace of mind, your health will be better off for it, actually.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Like I said, we could go on for hours. Christine, I know you didn't get to talk much. Is there anything you wanted? I know. Is there anything you wanted to share today that maybe hasn't been shared?
Goodness, I think you covered so much today. And there's, like you said, there's so much more that you can cover. And I just love the support of the military and veteran community. It's unlike anything else. And the level of loyalty, and that's something that I think is really important. It's the loyalty that you find amongst veterans is unparalleled anywhere else. I love working with veterans. I absolutely love it.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for being on today. I really appreciate it. I'm sure we're going to have to do a couple more interviews to cover it all, because there's a lot we could talk about. If you are watching and you found value, please pass this on to your network. I'm sure Christine and Cristie will put some links down below to the National Chamber, and that's where you can get connected in your area if you're not in DFW. I happen to know here in Colorado Springs, where I am from, that they are getting ready or have just launched a Veterans Chamber. We're in the launch phase, I believe, I heard recently. So if you're in the Colorado Springs area, please reach out to me and I can connect you with the right people. We also have veteran networking groups. But if for some reason you didn't find value, can you please do me a favor? still share it with your network, because there's somebody that needs to hear Cristie's story today. And so I would love if you would pass it on. And then, of course, connect with Cristie, Christine, or myself if you have any questions. If you're a veteran, we'd love to just get to know you and plug you into the communities in Colorado and down in Texas. So with that, thanks again so much for being on this morning, Cristie and Christine, and thank you, everyone. And I will see you next Monday on Military Mondays. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.